There comes a time in every woman's life when the pain becomes too deep to hide, too heavy to carry, and too sharp to ignore. But that very pain, the same one that once broke her, can become the foundation upon which she rebuilds herself. Pain is not the end of her story, it is the beginning of her transformation. When a woman rises from her pain, she doesn't just stand up, she becomes unshakable, untouchable, and unstoppable. A woman's heart has a sacred strength that cannot be destroyed. Life may push her down, people may misunderstand her, and circumstances may test her faith. But within her lies a quiet resilience that waits for the right moment to bloom. She doesn't need validation, she needs awakening. And once that awakening happens, the world around her begins to shift. The scars she carries are not signs of defeat. They are medals of honor. They remind her that she fought battles no one saw, cried tears no one wiped, and still chose to love, forgive, and move forward. Her pain doesn't make her bitter. It refines her spirit, purifies her intentions, and strengthens her faith. When she rises, she no longer chases people or approval. She walks with peace in her soul, clarity in her mind, and purpose in her steps. Her smile becomes a symbol of courage, not comfort. Her silence becomes wisdom, not weakness. She learns that pain was never meant to destroy her, but to teach her how to rise higher, love deeper, and live freer. The woman who has risen from her pain becomes a healer. She understands others without judgment because she's been there. She listens without interrupting because she knows what silence feels like. She gives without expecting because she remembers what it's like to have nothing. Her power is not loud, it's graceful. Her presence alone brings peace. When a woman rises from her pain, she teaches the world something divine, that broken things can still shine, that tears can water seeds of greatness, and that every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. Pain is not a punishment, but a pathway to growth. It transforms weakness into wisdom. Every woman at some point in life faces pain so deep it feels like her heart will never heal again. It may come through loss, betrayal, disappointment, or silence. In that moment, it is easy to believe that life is unfair, that the world has turned its back, and that nothing good can ever emerge from the ashes of sorrow. But pain, in its mysterious way, is not here to destroy her, it's here to rebuild her. Pain is not the end, it is the teacher that leads her to a higher understanding of herself. When a woman is broken by what she has gone through, something sacred happens inside her. She starts to look inward, to question, to reflect. The outer noise begins to fade, and she starts hearing her own inner voice. A voice that was always there, but buried beneath fear and expectations. Pain silences the distractions of the world and forces her to meet herself honestly. It is uncomfortable. It is raw, but it is real. And it is in that space of truth where transformation begins. Pain teaches her patience. When nothing works, when no one understands, she learns to wait, to breathe, to trust the process. She realizes that healing cannot be rushed. It unfolds one day at a time. Slowly, she learns that not every question deserves an immediate answer. Not every wound requires instant closure. Some things simply need time, and pain becomes her silent companion during that time of growth. Through that waiting, she becomes stronger, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Pain also teaches her empathy. Once she has walked through darkness, she becomes gentle with others who are still finding their light. She no longer judges easily because she knows that behind every smile might be a storm. She becomes more compassionate, more understanding, more human. Her pain expands her heart, making it softer, not harder. What was once her weakness now becomes the source of her greatest strength. The woman who has walked through pain begins to see the world differently. She starts to appreciate the small things, the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of silence, the power of forgiveness. The things she once took for granted now become sacred. Her values shift. She no longer chases perfection, but peace. She no longer tries to please everyone, but to stay true to herself. The pain that once shattered her illusions now brings her back to authenticity. And one day, without even realizing it, she looks back and sees that the very pain she cursed became the reason she found her purpose. It taught her resilience, depth, and courage. It stripped away what was fake and revealed what was true. It turned her wounds into wisdom and her struggles into stories of strength. Pain is not punishment. It is preparation. It prepares her to handle greater blessings with humility, to appreciate joy more deeply, and to live with gratitude. The woman who learns from her pain becomes unstoppable, not because she never falls again, but because she knows she can rise every time she does. She carries her scars not as reminders of suffering, but as marks of victory. She no longer hides her past, she honors it, because now she knows pain was never her enemy. It was her guide, leading her to the woman she was always meant to become. Every woman has an inner resilience that awakens when she chooses to rise instead of breaking. Strength is not something she goes out to find. It's something that already lives within her. Often, she doesn't even realize how powerful she truly is until life pushes her to the edge. When everything seems to fall apart, when her heart is heavy, her dreams are shattered, and the road ahead feels uncertain, something remarkable happens inside her. A quiet whisper rises within, telling her, "You've got this. You've survived before. You'll survive again." That whisper is her resilience speaking. Resilience is not about being fearless or pretending that nothing hurts. It's about standing tall despite the pain, about walking forward even when her legs tremble. It's about holding on to hope when everything around her screams despair. This strength doesn't come overnight. It is forged in the fire of struggle, shaped by tears and tested by trials. Every time she chooses not to give up, she is building a stronger version of herself. Her resilience is not loud, it's silent, steady, and deeply rooted. When she rises from her pain, she begins to realize that her power was never in avoiding suffering, but in enduring it with grace. She understands that setbacks are not signs of weakness, they are training grounds for her soul. Every challenge she faces becomes a lesson. Every heartbreak becomes a teacher. Every storm becomes a mirror reflecting the strength that was hidden inside her all along. She learns that she doesn't need anyone to rescue her. She is her own savior, her own healer, her own light. Resilience changes how she views herself. She no longer sees a broken woman, but a warrior who refused to surrender. The tears she once saw as symbols of weakness now become evidence of her courage. She discovers that strength isn't in how loudly she roars, but in how gracefully she endures. She begins to stand with quiet confidence, not because her life is perfect, but because she trusts her ability to rise no matter what happens. The power of resilience is that it doesn't erase pain, but it transforms it. It turns wounds into wisdom, fear into faith, and failure into fuel. The woman who has learned to rise knows that no storm lasts forever. She begins to walk with faith instead of fear, peace instead of panic. She no longer asks, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead says, "What is this trying to teach me?" That shift in perspective is the beginning of true empowerment. And as she continues to rise, others start to see her differently. They see a glow in her eyes that can only come from overcoming pain. They see a calm in her spirit that only those who've survived storms can carry. She becomes an example, not of perfection, but of perseverance. Her story reminds others that strength is not given, it is earned through endurance, faith, and the choice to keep moving forward, even when everything hurts. The woman who chooses to rise discovers that her resilience is her greatest gift. It cannot be taken, bought, or broken. It is born from within, nurtured by struggle, and revealed through perseverance. And in that rising, she doesn't just rebuild her life, she redefines her identity. She becomes proof that no matter how deep the wound, the spirit of a determined woman will always find a way to heal, to rise, and to shine again. Scars are symbols of survival and strength, not shame or defeat. Every woman carries invisible marks of the battles she has fought, some on her heart, some on her soul, and some in the silent corners of her mind. Society often teaches her to hide her scars, to pretend she's untouched by pain, to appear flawless. But the truth is, perfection has never inspired anyone. Courage has. And courage is born from the wounds that didn't destroy her, but refined her. A scar is not a sign that she was broken, it's proof that she healed. Every scar tells a story. It whispers of the nights she cried, but still chose to wake up the next morning. It speaks of the moments when her heart was heavy, but she still found reasons to smile. Each one is a reminder that she has been through storms that could have drowned her, but didn't. The scar doesn't take away her beauty, it deepens it. It gives her character, depth, and authenticity. It says, "I have lived, I have felt, I have survived." There's a certain quiet dignity in a woman who wears her scars without apology. She no longer hides behind masks or pretends to be unhurt. Instead, she stands tall, proud of her journey, because she knows that scars mean she was brave enough to fight, strong enough to endure, and wise enough to heal. They remind her of her evolution from who she was to who she has become. They are her personal testimony that she didn't give up, even when she had every reason to. Her scars teach her compassion. When she sees pain in others, she doesn't turn away. She understands it because she's been there. She knows the ache of loss, the weight of loneliness, the sting of betrayal. Her empathy flows naturally because her own scars have softened her heart. She becomes a source of comfort for others, not by offering perfect words, but by simply being present, by understanding without judgment. Scars also carry wisdom. Each one has taught her something priceless. Some taught her patience, some taught her boundaries, and some taught her that not everyone deserves access to her heart. Her scars guide her decisions now. They remind her what she will no longer tolerate, what she truly values, and what kind of love she deserves. They are not reminders of pain, but of lessons learned. And over time, she begins to see that her scars are not something to fix, but something to honor. Because those marks are sacred, they show where light entered her. They are proof that the darkness didn't win. When she looks in the mirror, she no longer wishes to erase her past. Instead, she honors it. Every scar, every tear, every struggle was part of the story that shaped her strength. The beauty of a scar is that it never forgets what happened, but it also doesn't stay open. It heals. And that's the miracle of it. Healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means remembering without pain. It means she can look back at what broke her and smile, not because it was easy, but because she's no longer defined by it. Her scars are not her weakness, they are her crown. They tell the world that she didn't just survive, she rose, she healed, and she became more radiant because of what she endured. True transformation begins when a woman stops seeking validation and starts embracing her worth. For much of her life, she may have been taught that her value comes from how others see her, from approval, attention, or acceptance. She learns to smile when she wants to cry, to please when she wants to speak her truth, and to fitting when her spirit longs to stand out. But there comes a day when she grows tired of living for the world's applause. That's when the transformation begins. The moment she decides to validate herself, to love herself without needing permission, and to honor her own heart art above the opinions of others. A woman's worth is not measured by what she does for others, how she looks, or how much she achieves. Her worth simply is. It is intrinsic, unchanging, and sacred. Yet the world often tries to make her forget that truth. It tells her she must earn love, prove her value, and meet impossible standards to be accepted. But when she stops chasing external approval and turns inward, she discovers something profound: peace. She realizes that validation from others is temporary, but self respect is eternal. The moment she begins to embrace her worth, everything changes. She no longer begs for attention that doesn't honor her or clings to relationships that drain her spirit. She learns the power of walking away, not from pride, but from peace. She no longer allows the world to define her beauty, her intelligence, or her success. Instead, she defines those things for herself. And when she does, she begins to shine from a place that no one can dim. Embracing her worth also means accepting her imperfections. She stops comparing herself to others and starts celebrating her own growth. She understands that she doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. The cracks in her soul are not flaws. They are spaces where light enters. She begins to see that her authenticity is her greatest strength. Her voice, her story, her scars, all of it is part of her magic. When she stops seeking validation, she becomes free from the constant anxiety of wondering whether she's enough. She no longer waits for someone else to recognize her value. She recognizes it herself. That freedom gives her confidence to dream boldly, to love deeply, and to live truthfully. She begins to make decisions not out of fear of rejection, but out of love for her own peace. This shift transforms how she moves through the world. People can feel it, the quiet confidence, the calm energy, the self-assured grace. She doesn't have to demand respect anymore. Her energy commands it naturally. She attracts better friendships, deeper connections, and opportunities that align with her worth because she finally believes she deserves them. And when she embraces her worth, she gives others permission to do the same. Her confidence becomes contagious. She becomes a living example that self-love isn't arrogance. It's awareness. Awareness that she is whole, complete, and enough exactly as she is. Her transformation doesn't come from the world validating her. It comes from her choosing to validate herself. It's the moment she looks in the mirror and says, I am enough, even if no one sees it. I am worthy, even if no one says it. I am valuable, even if no one believes it. That realization marks the birth of a new woman, one who no longer seeks the world's approval because she has finally found her own. Rising from pain means releasing the past without resentment and walking forward in peace. For a woman who has been deeply hurt, letting go can be one of the hardest things to do. The past holds memories that are both precious and painful. Moments that shaped her, people who broke her, and dreams that faded before they could bloom. She may replay those memories, wondering what went wrong, wishing things had been different. But true healing begins when she understands that holding on to what hurt her is not strength. It is bondage. Freedom comes when she decides to release the weight of what she cannot change and step into the light of what can still be. Letting go is not about pretending the pain never existed. It's about accepting that it did and choosing not to let it control her anymore. It's realizing that the past has already done its job. It taught her, broke her open, and revealed her resilience. Now, it no longer deserves to occupy space in her heart. She doesn't let bitterness build walls around her spirit. She lets understanding build bridges toward her peace. She forgives not because the other person deserves it, but because she deserves freedom. When she learns to release the past, she stops carrying people who were never meant to go where she's headed. Some relationships are not punishments, they are lessons. Some endings are not losses, they are redirections. She begins to see that every person who left, every disappointment she faced, and every closed door had a purpose: to lead her back to herself. She realizes that peace is not found in clinging, but in surrendering. Walking forward in peace means she no longer lets her past define her identity. She stops introducing herself to life as the one who was betrayed or the one who failed. She becomes the one who survived, or the one who learned, and one who grew. Her story doesn't end with pain. It continues with purpose. One who continues with purpose. The same moments that once made her cry now give her clarity. The people who once wounded her now serve as reminders of her strength. The peace she finds after releasing the past is quiet but powerful. It's not the absence of pain, but the presence of acceptance. She no longer fights life's flow, she moves with it. She learns that peace doesn't come from having a perfect life, but from having a peaceful mind. She learns to trust that everything that left her life was meant to, and everything meant for her will stay. Letting go also means forgiving herself for staying too long, for not knowing better, for trying to fix what wasn't hers to fix. She releases guilt and replaces it with grace. She stops blaming herself for what went wrong and starts blessing herself for having the courage to begin again. Every breath she takes in peace is an act of reclaiming her power. As she walks forward, her steps become lighter. The world feels different, not because it changed, but because she did. The weight of resentment no longer bends her spirit. The chains of the past no longer hold her down. She moves with calmness, speaks with kindness, and lives with wisdom. She understands that peace was never something to be found outside. It was something waiting to bloom within her once she let go of what no longer served her. Her silence and solitude become sacred spaces of healing and self-discovery. In a world that constantly demands noise, attention, and validation, a woman who chooses silence begins to understand a deeper kind of power. When pain has spoken loudly enough in her life, she reaches a moment where words no longer bring peace. Only stillness does. She begins to retreat, not because she is weak or broken, but because she is rebuilding. Her silence is not emptiness, it is restoration. It is the space where her spirit begins to breathe again after being suffocated by chaos. In solitude, she no longer runs from herself. She sits with her thoughts, her wounds, her regrets, and her hopes. At first, that silence can feel uncomfortable because it forces her to face truths she once avoided. The masks she wore begin to fall away, and what remains is her truest self, raw, real, and honest. She starts to understand that healing doesn't happen in the noise of the world, but in the quiet corners of her heart, where she finally listens to her soul. In those moments of silence, she hears what pain was trying to teach her all along. She begins to see patterns she once ignored, why she kept choosing the same kind of people, why she silenced her needs to please others, and why she feared being alone. Her solitude becomes her greatest teacher, showing her the difference between loneliness and peace. Loneliness says, I need someone to fill this space. Peace says, I am whole, even in this space. That shift changes everything. Through her time alone, she learns that solitude is not isolation. It is connection. Connection to herself, to her purpose, to the divine energy that breathes life into her every morning. She starts to pray differently, think differently, love differently. The noise of the world used to drown her truth, but now, in her quiet, her truth becomes louder than ever. She learns to trust her intuition, the voice that was always there, but buried beneath doubt. She learns to listen not just to the words people say, but to the energy behind them. Her silence sharpens her awareness. The woman who embraces silence becomes centered. She doesn't react to everything anymore. She doesn't explain herself to everyone. She knows that not every battle deserves her energy, and not every opinion deserves her attention. Silence becomes her shield, protecting her peace, her focus, and her growth. When people misinterpret her quietness, she doesn't rush to defend it. She understands that peace doesn't need explanation. In solitude, she also begins to dream again. Away from the expectations of others, she starts remembering what she truly wants, not what she was told to want. Her imagination awakens, her passions reignite, and her purpose becomes clearer. She realizes that silence is not an absence of life, but the birthplace of vision. Every creative idea, every act of courage, every new beginning starts in the quiet, and slowly, her silence becomes strength. She no longer fears being alone, she honors it. She no longer fills empty spaces with noise, she fills them with grace. She no longer seeks distractions, she seeks depth. Her solitude is no longer a void, it's a sanctuary. It's where she meets herself, heals herself, and rebuilds herself. In that sacred stillness, she doesn't just recover from her pain, she rises above it, anchored in peace, clarity, and unshakable self-awareness. A healed woman doesn't seek revenge. She seeks peace and purpose. There was a time when she may have wanted to fight back, to prove her worth, or to make others feel the pain they caused her. But over time, she learns that revenge does not heal. It only keeps wounds open. Peace, however, closes them gently. It takes great strength to look at the people who hurt you and choose to walk away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. The healed woman realizes that revenge would only make her a prisoner of her past, but peace sets her free. When a woman is broken, her emotions can become storms. Anger, resentment, sadness, and confusion swell inside her heart. She might ask, "Why me?" or how could they do this to me? But as she begins to heal, she understands that not every wrong needs to be righted by her hands. The universe has its own way of balancing things. Her focus shifts from getting even to getting better. She starts to invest her energy in rebuilding her life rather than reliving her pain. Seeking peace is not a sign that she has forgotten. It's proof that she has learned. She understands that holding grudges only keeps her tied to the very people who hurt her. Forgiveness, she realizes, isn't saying what they did was right. It's saying she deserves to move on. She doesn't want to spend her future being haunted by her past. So she lets go, not for them, but for her own freedom. Her forgiveness is not a gift to others, it's a gift to her own soul. As she begins to heal, her heart becomes softer, not harder. She stops fighting the world and starts flowing with it. She learns to turn pain into power and wounds into wisdom. Her focus shifts toward growth, peace, and purpose. Instead of asking, how do I make them regret losing me? She asks, how can I use this pain to become who I'm meant to be? That change in mindset is where true healing begins. When she chooses peace, her energy transforms. People can feel it when she enters a room. The calmness, the grace, the quiet strength. She no longer reacts out of hurt. She responds with clarity. She no longer seeks to prove her worth. She knows it. She doesn't try to win arguments or convince others of her truth. She simply lives it. Her peace becomes her response to everything that once tried to break her. The healed woman channels her energy into purpose. She uses her pain to create meaning, perhaps by helping others, pursuing a passion, or living authentically. She realizes that the best form of revenge is not revenge at all. It's success, joy, and peace of mind. It's waking up every day with gratitude instead of anger, with hope instead of hate. Her purpose becomes her protest against everything that tried to destroy her. And as she continues on her journey, she understands that peace is not found in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of self-control. She no longer allows others to dictate her emotions. She chooses what deserves her attention, her energy, and her heart. When she chooses peace over revenge, she reclaims her power. She becomes the author of her story again, not the victim of someone else's actions. Her calm becomes her crown, her purpose becomes her path, and her peace becomes her power. Her journey from pain to power inspires others to believe in their own strength. When a woman rises after being broken, she doesn't just heal herself. She becomes a living message of hope for everyone who crosses her path. Her story becomes proof that no matter how deep the wound or how long the darkness lasts, light always returns. People who once felt lost look at her and see what's possible. They see that healing is not just a dream, it's a choice. A woman who has transformed her pain into power becomes a silent guide in thee, reminding others that even the hardest chapters can lead to the most beautiful endings. She doesn't have to speak loudly to inspire. Her presence alone does that. The calm in her eyes, the strength in her steps, and the peace in her voice tell a story of endurance. Those who meet her may not know everything she's been through, but they feel it. There's something in her energy, steady, grounded, and full of grace, that makes people believe in themselves. She doesn't preach healing. She embodies it, and that embodiment is far more powerful than any words could ever be. Her journey teaches others that healing is not about forgetting the past. It's about transforming it. She becomes a living example that pain can be turned into purpose. She may have once been afraid, fragile, or uncertain, but now she walks with a quiet confidence that tells others, you can survive this too. Every person she encounters feels that message without her even saying it. Her scars, once symbols of suffering, now shine as beacons of strength. The woman who has risen from pain doesn't need to force inspiration. It flows naturally from her authenticity. She shares her truth, not to seek sympathy, but to offer solidarity. She reminds others that strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means refusing to stay broken. When she tells her story, she does so with humility, not pride, because she knows the journey wasn't easy. She knows what it feels like to cry in silence, to pray without answers, to rebuild herself one breath at a time. And because of that, she speaks with compassion that touches hearts deeply. Those around her begin to change too. They start to believe in healing because she shows them what it looks like. They begin to find courage in their own struggles, hope in their own losses, and faith in their own journeys. Her strength becomes a mirror that reflects their own potential. She becomes a symbol, not of perfection, but of perseverance. Her life whispers the truth that everyone needs to hear, that even after pain, there can be peace. Even after heartbreak, there can be happiness. Her journey creates a ripple effect. When she stands tall, others around her learn to do the same. When she chooses love over bitterness, others follow her example. When she lives with faith after fear, it gives others permission to do the same. The light she carries begins to spread, touching lives she may never even realize. Her transformation becomes a gift, not just for herself, but for the world. A woman who turns her pain into power becomes more than an individual success story. She becomes a symbol of possibility. Her courage reminds everyone that pain is not the end. It's the beginning of awakening. Her strength gives others the courage to rise, to rebuild, and to believe that they, too, can turn their own pain into power.